Good day, everyone. This is your friend, Dr. Arle Imperio, and I'm commonly addressed to by my friends as Dr. Arle. And I would just like to give a brief discussion of the role of amino acids and protein synthesis to our life and health. And this is one lecture I gave last year, December 28th, 2020. But I would like to give some descriptions on its importance into our lives. However, I would like to make a disclaimer that we do not uh, want to make any claim of diagnosis, treatment, or cure. If you have any medical condition, always consult your physician. And health statements in this presentation have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Now, the question is how many amino acids do we have and how many amino acids are required? So you can see now in this slide that we need 20 amino acids. So the amino acids or the 20 amino acids are like the letters of the alphabet or the letters or uh, that are found in the keyboard of the typewriter or of your laptop. The importance of this analogy to that with the alphabet is to show the importance of each letter. Like in the keyboard, you need every letter to create certain words. So if there are certain letters missing, uh, certain words cannot be created. For example, if you will type my name Arle, that's Arle, you need four letters: letter A, letter R, letter L, and letter E. However, if let's say one of the letters is not present, for example, letter L is not present, so you type in AR, it's E. You cannot type in the letter L, so you don't complete the name. So the same thing with the amino acids, my dear friends. We need the amino acids to create the protein as given by the, let's say, by the DNA. From the DNA, there are instructions on what proteins to be created. And we need the 20 amino acids to create the protein. Therefore, if certain amino acids are not present, the body will have difficulty in creating the protein that has been instructed to be done. And I would like to show the connection of nucleotides and amino acids in this diagram. So we mentioned a while ago that we need the amino acids, right? And uh, and that's at the left side of this slide. On the right side, you will see the genome, where you can see a series of DNA, and inside the DNA are the nucleotides. You can see the letters, right? Letter A, that's for adenine; T for thymine; G for guanine. And notice the nucleotides are, or the nitrogen bases are being arranged in a certain way. So that is inside the DNA. And it is the DNA that gives the instruction, right? We mentioned that. So when instruction is given by the DNA, it will need the amino acids to create the protein uh, desired. But the DNA possesses the nucleotides. Therefore, if there is problem at the nucleotide level, let's say the sequence of nucleotides inside the DNA, therefore the instructions may not be complete, and therefore the amino acids may have may be given the wrong instructions. So that's the connection between amino acids and nucleotides. Now, in this slide, I would like you to see the connection of the, let's say, nucleus and cytoplasm, their importance in our discussion. The cell has a nucleus. The distance between the nucleus and the cell is the cytoplasm or the cytoplasmic area. So look at the diagram. On the left side, you can see the cell, and then you can now see the nucleus. So where is the cytoplasm? It is between the nucleus and the cell membrane. And inside the nucleus, this is where the DNA is located. And so you can now see the importance of, let's say, uh, of this relationship. The code is in the DNA, and the production of the protein is in the cytoplasm. So the messenger RNA copies, let's say, the code from the DNA and goes out of the nuclear membrane, and in the cytoplasm or cytoplasmic area attracts the corresponding amino acids. So the question is, where does transcription and translation occur in the cell? The answer is transcription occurs inside the nucleus of the cell, and translation occurs in the cytoplasmic area outside the nucleus. So look closely at the diagram and see the connection. So how are proteins created? So you can look at the image on the left side. The DNA will replicate, and then the code from the DNA is copied by the RNA. This happens inside the nucleus, as we mentioned. And then the RNA goes out of the nucleus, and in the cytoplasmic area, uh, it will be translated into the corresponding protein. And therefore, to create a protein, we need the amino acids. So the 20 amino acids must be present in the cytoplasm in order to create a protein. So this is what we call protein synthesis, or how protein is created. So from the DNA, we get the code, and then the RNA gets the code, and then from the RNA, it attracts the amino acids to create the protein. So we would like now to emphasize the central dogma of biology and protein synthesis. When you say central, it is fundamental, right? When you say dogma, it connotes the idea of absolute truth, and this is a word usually given in religious, let's say, settings. A dogma is something that is being declared as truth. And biology is life, right? Bio, life, logy is the logic of life. So the central dogma of biology is how the body creates a protein. And so you will now see at the slide, the outline, DNA through transcription, RNA through translation is protein. And then as we have just discussed, where this occurs inside the cell. So transcription is inside the nucleus of the cell, and translation is at the cytoplasmic area. And so notice that there are 3 nucleotides to 1 amino acid. So that's the connection of the nucleotide to amino acids to protein synthesis and to the central dogma of biology. So just review the slides carefully and try to remember how I described them, and you will see the relationships of the DNA, nucleotide, amino acids, and body proteins. So notice the role of transcription, translation in the formation of proteins, in the use of amino acids, right? So this is another diagram that summarizes it in more detail. So you can now see, like what I mentioned, that there are 3 nucleotides to 1 amino acids, right? From the messenger RNA, you can see at the left side, which copied the sequence of nucleotides from the DNA. You can now see guanine, cytosine, and that's for one type of amino acid. And then you can now see adenine, uracil, guanine for one type of amino acid. And then combination of amino acids would lead to the formation of protein. So we call this peptide synthesis or the growing peptide chain. And that's how eventually the body is created, how the body is created, maintained, and repaired. So this is done through protein or peptide synthesis. So here is another slide. It's talking of the same thing, but only it's in more detail. You can now see the pathway for gene expression. Gene is what the gene or genome is what we get from the DNA. This is what we inherited from our parents. We can never change that. It's constant. However, the expression of that can be, let's say, enhanced, modified, or even muted. And the sequence involved is this. So anything that happens in between the processes will eventually affect the formation of the protein. So you can again see DNA will replicate, and then through transcription, the messenger RNA gets the code, right? And then it goes out of the nucleus and goes into the cytoplasm, or it's translated through protein to a functional protein. And this is where amino acids come in. So how proteins are created or shaped, and this dictates, quote and unquote, dictates the function in the cell. So you can see at the upper portion of the illustration, there's the DNA, and then the RNA strand was created, copying the sequence from the DNA. And then through the combination of, let's say, proteins, eventually create a particular, let's say, protein molecule, the protein shape. And notice that the protein shape dictates the function in the cell. That's how important it is. And then again, we repeat it, but now we are now focusing on the value of food supplementation to support the central dogma. So the question is, do we need dietary supplements? The answer is yes, uh, to support the central dogma of life. So if you look at the left side, there's the DNA, it self-replicates, and then the RNA copies the code and then creates the protein. And we have discussed in the previous slides the detailed sequence. Therefore, Therefore, if there is a food supplement that contains the following food ingredients like dietary nucleotides, number two, the essential amino acids, and eventually it's a 20 amino acids, then it will support the central dogma, obviously. The nucleotides will support the structure and function of the DNA and the RNA, so we call it the DNA nucleotide, the RNA nucleotide. And then in the process of protein synthesis, we need the amino acids, and we emphasize that there are 20 amino acids, and each amino acid corresponds like to the letter of the alphabet. So every letter is important or required to create certain words. So the same thing. So whatever is the direction or let's say order of the DNA, eventually it needs the amino acids to create the particular protein as required. Okay, that's it, my dear friends. So at least when I ask the question, what is the central dogma of biology? What are the two basic steps? The answer is transcription and translation. And do we now see the importance of nucleotides? The answer is yes. Do we now see the importance of amino acids? The answer is yes. Therefore, if you have a food supplement that supports nucleotide, let's say, and amino acids, will it help? Of course, it will help. The body does this automatically, but when one gets older, when one gets weaker, and when one gets some health challenges, the ability of the body to maintain this basic movement may be weakened. Therefore, we need to supplement or through food give the necessary ingredients to support the central dogma of biology. Okay, so this is your friend, Dr. Arle Macasiano Imperio, always reminding everyone that the prevention is always better than getting the best cure. And always remember to get in touch with the person who shared you this information and get more information about our Life Livelihood program uh, that will promote better health for each one. God bless you, and always remember to recognize that God is the only source of our power, life, and health and prosperity. Mabuhay, as we usually say from the Philippines, and God bless to everyone. And always remember that this presentation is not meant to diagnose, treat, or cure. If you have any medical condition, always consult your doctor. And health statements that we have given have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration.